Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another breakdown video. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're having a good weekend so far. Today we've got the GU11R and the EU-1 to go over. So we've got a nice little duo of a win and a loss to go over, which is good to see both sides. So let's get straight into this. So GU we're going to do first. So let's mark out our ranges. New York Open. So we've got our major high, major low, minor high, and not created that low yet. So let's continue to play. Okay, so at this point here, what do? We create our low, so we can now mark out our range. Let's do that. And continue to play. So we break our structure to the downside for our situation 2. So what do? We need to mark out our POI for price to come back to for that order flow to start happening. So let's continue to play. We create our low again. Let's mark out that. Okay, cool. So at this point here, I think a few of you have asked me a few times, what happens if it only just misses it? Do you just trade it anyway? And the answer is very simple. If it doesn't touch it, then it's not valid. It doesn't matter if it misses it by 0.1, 0.2, or by a pip. Okay, it's exactly the same thing. If it doesn't touch it, it is simply not valid. Okay, so I think, have we broke yet? Yeah, we've just about broken. Did we? Or if it was the next one, let's have a look. Yeah, next one. No, not the next one. Let's continue going. There we go. No, another one. There we go. So at that point we break, and now we've got an invalidated situation 2 set up. However, what we now do is we now go on to break that situation 1 low. Okay. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to trade this yet. Well, I'm not going to trade this yet, simply because it would be a situation 3 trade if we were to use that as our intent. Okay. But we've now created our situation 1 possibility. So let's continue to play. So we create our session low for situation 1. Let me put the magnet back on, let's continue to play. And almost instantly we come back to break that. So we've got intent. So what do? We do the exact same thing again. We then mark out our intent OB. What do we need? We need price to come back into that OB, respect it, and then go on to break structure again. Right? Simple stuff. Oh, so we create the low. Let's mark out that and continue to play again. And then we get a really nice impulsive move to the downside again. Now, first things first, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, okay, so price has gone quite far past the 50%. As you know from the data that I've seen and the trades that I've taken, it becomes a lower probability when that happens. So it's simply a case of why has that happened, okay? So let's move down. Now what we can see here is while this and this move here was within the open and the 50% on that base time frame, we've then because we still had this unmitigated 30 seconds sat here, okay? So now this makes sense to me why we came past the 50% on the base time frame and we needed to come further up into that refinement for the 30-second, okay? So at this point here, what we're going to do, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to say, okay, this is nice and clear. Mark out ROB, so let's do that. First things first, let's check the next time frame to see if anything's happened. So let's look at our ranges. We had our high, break, so we haven't created any sort of situation breaks here. So there's basically nothing we can do here. It's absolutely fine to trade that 1 minute. Just to add, really nice momentum. We get break, a nice little slow retracement back, break. Okay, there's a nice space in between, and we get a really nice, clear, impulsive OB. Okay. Successful retrace OB, sorry. Talking of the successful retrace, it is a little bit big. Now this is a funny one because it wouldn't have actually mattered if you refined it or not. You'd have got exactly the same entry. However, for me, I'd rather miss a trade than take a loss. Okay, that's just how I operate and how my psychology plays out. When price enters a POI, I need to be 100% confident to trade that reaction if it happens. Whereas if it happens in here, I'm not going to be 100% confident because it is such a big range, isn't it? So I believe, if I remember correctly, this one was, yeah, this one was the 5-second. So on the 5-second, I saw this, and I saw this. Now, on the subject of refinement, we need to remember 2 things here. The first thing is when we refine, it needs to still be within the range of our base time frame OB, okay? So we can't start looking at things like this because it's not within the range of that POI that we drew on, okay? It needs to be within the range. Secondly, we still need to make sure that we're following the rules of OBs. It can't just be any random candle. It can't be imbalanced, okay? It has to be an OB. So let's mark out our structure here. So we had this break of structure to create this low. That low was broken there, and then we created a low. That low was broken there. We created a high, that was broken. High-low candle in itself, so we had a break there. So this becomes the high, this becomes a low. You should know how to do this already. If you don't, then you need more practice. It's just practice, that's all it is. And then we get our successful retrace again for low. So these are both valid refinements, because why? They are inside the range of the higher time frame base OB, and they are both OBs on their retrospective time frame. Okay, so let's continue to play, get rid of all of those drawings. Let's go back to the 1 minute. Oh, there we go. Get rid of that, and then we've got our 2 zones. Cool, continue to play. It's quite a big spike, this one, wasn't it? It was quite a fast wick. Did that first wick miss? Yeah, it did. So we get our wick up into our POI. Let's drop down to the 5 second as always. That is definitely not how it was live. Let me try that again. You guys know what replay mode is like sometimes. It shouldn't be a big wick. There we go, it should be candles. Cool. So we create our high. Not yet, sorry. We create our high. Let's work back to find our low. Our low is quite obviously this one here because we've got our final break. So let's just continue to play price for now. And we get a slight break on this one here. So as we can see here, we get that really small body. I don't know, I'm pointing at the screen, you can't see it. On this most recent blue candle here, we get a really small body break. So that becomes our intent. Let's mark it out. It's not on properly. It's a bit fiddly when it's this close. There we go. So we get that intent. So what do? We set our limit. The limit goes off the last buy candle. 1.5 pip stop loss covers the high nicely for any wicks or spread. And then we obviously move down. Let's continue to watch. Okay, so we get our second break of... Oh, do we? No, not yet. I think it's this candle. Yep, we get our second break of structure. So we're still valid within that 2 rules. However, we then do go and break once more. Wait for it. There we go. So now that entry has been validated, we need to move up to the next time frame. So let's do that. Now, moving up to the next time frame, what we can see is we can see that this was our low, which is just broken. Now, I'm sure you've seen the breakdown post. In this circumstance here, it was a little bit unique. I haven't really seen this before. However, if we mark out our OB, what we can see is this next wick basically comes back into it and mitigates the open and the 50%. So this was a little bit of a funny one where we had a really clear base time frame set up, our 5 second entry invalidated on that third break. We move up again, and then we just have a little bit of a strange circumstance where we have a really clear OB, but this wick has then gone back into it. So my thought process here was basically that's going to be the OB, down as possible while using my highest stop loss count that I like to use, which is at 2 pips, right? So let me have a look at MetaTrader. I can't remember exactly where I put it. It was 21756. So I actually did it a little bit lower. There we go. Cool. Perfect. So we set that limit there. We're covering the high. GU's got nice low spread, so we're going to cover that high with enough room. What's that? I think it was about half a pip. Yeah, 0.4. That's absolutely fine. And then we're going to make sure that we're going to give it our best chance to get into that trade with using our maximum stop loss. Obviously, it's better if your entry time frame is clear, but in this circumstance, you've just sort of got to do it quickly, and this made perfect sense to me. 5 second invalidated, 15 second broke. We had a wick back into it, so we just enter it as low down as possible within the range of that POI, and then we cover the high for the stop loss, obviously. Cool. Let's continue to watch. Okay, so we get that trigger at this point. So what do? We now need to wait for our next break of structure. Continue to play. We mess around for a little bit, and then we get a nice impulsive break. Now, at this point, what do? We go to break even, and now we're going to mark out our 1 to 10. What's our 1 to 10 for? It's for our first partial point. like I always say, you guys need to create your own risk management. This is simply what works for me and what I like to do. 1 to 10, partial, and then have a look at the hard time frame. So let's continue to play. Okay, so on this trade here, I actually took 8R instead of 5, simply because it's been a little bit quiet for the last 2 weeks, and it was getting to the end of the week, and I just wanted to take a nice partial out. Okay, as simple as that. 20% left to run. Now, in this circumstance here, what we can see on the 4 hour is we're actually counter trend because we're coming off of a 4 hour wick trick, so a 4 hour most recent leg for the break of structure. So in this circumstance, what I did do, replay mode's at it again, hasn't even touched, is I then took further partials before we got to that point. Okay, so let's just continue to play. And there we go, we hit that high time frame. Now at this point I took more partials and then simply 10% was left to run, 10% of the original risk. So obviously I used 1% risk at the beginning. So that was a really nice trade. It was really clear. The only slight complexity there was that entry time frame on the 15-second, but we just use a little bit of initiative. We mark out the whole range. We enter where we can as low as possible with our maximum stop loss range of the 2 pips above the high for that invalidation point above the OB. And yeah, happy days. So that was a nice win. That was an 11R gain. So now let's have a look at our loss on EU. So we're going to do exactly the same thing, and we're going to follow it start to finish. So we've got our high. Let me get this one. Cool. We've got our high. Where's our low? Our low is here. So now that's situation 3, isn't it? So at this point here, we can't really do anything, right? Unless you want to trade situation 3, which I don't personally do. So for me, I just need to be patient and wait at this point. Okay, so we create our situation 2 low. Let's mark out that. I'm actually going to get rid of these because I don't really want them at the moment. And then we create our situation 2 high. Now at this point here, next candle I think it is. Yep, next candle breaks, so we get our intent. So let's mark out our intent OB just like we did for our last trade. What do we want? We want a successful retrace to start, to then what's the word? Respect this POI and then continue for that second break. I think this creates a low. Yeah, this creates the low. So let's mark out that. We get that OB reaction. And we get that excuse me, and we get that follow through. Now at this point, what do? We just quickly check the next time frame. And I think replay mode is going to mess me about again, because I'm pretty sure. Let's have a look at Discord. Breakdowns. Yeah, okay, so in live price action, this was our first break. So we basically had the 2 rules on 2 minutes. So you need to visualize this and remember it when I go back to the chart. So basically this was a break of structure live. So we're just going to place it there, for example. So we had the exact same rules on the 2 minute as we did the 1 minute. Now the difference here is, and I think replay mode once again is going to change from live, is we had this wick trick here within the range of that last candle that broke above to then break structure downwards. We have a final base here, but obviously we do have this wick trick. Again, let me go back to Discord. Oh, not that. Let's go back to Discord. Now what we can see here is this wick trick was completely unmitigated. Okay, this wick here in live price action did not touch the range of that high, whereas if we go back now, somehow all of a sudden it's changed. Okay, but yeah, again, you're going to be need to be a little bit imaginative and say that that hasn't moved. Okay, so let's continue to play. Now, sorry, in this circumstance here, what have we done? We've got a really nice clear mitigation point within the open and the 50%, so we don't need to mess about looking on the lower time frames at all. Let's continue to play. Sorry. Okay, so we come back in, so let's do exactly the same thing as before. Let's mark out our ranges. Sorry, let me go back a little bit. Cool, so our alert goes off, we're now in, should already be watching it once that 2 rules has played out. So let's continue to play. So what do we get? We get our 5-second intent. What do? We set our entry. Entry point was, I think it was off the imbalance, wasn't it? If I remember correctly. Let's have a quick look, just so I'm accurate with what I'm doing. Yep, off that imbalance. Just because if we put it off the open, it's got a wick here, so it doesn't really make too much sense. And we can get a pip and a half anyway. Obviously, then we're going to wait for price to tag us in. So we get tagged in almost immediately. What do? We then mark out our low to then go break even. However, in this case, we simply do not get that follow through. We don't get the chance to go break even, and we take that -1. Okay, so to be fair, pretty simple trade. It's not simple, pretty similar trades, weren't they? In the fact that we were following those ranges from open to close. This one obviously was situation 1, happened a little bit further into the session. This one was situation 2, that happened almost immediately within half an hour. Yeah, I think that's all pretty clear. Well, I hope it's clear anyway. I had some really good feedback, which was always really good to hear. I think a lot of you are enjoying the video format rather than just the breakdowns themselves. It's like I said the other week, I think everybody learns a bit differently, don't they? And obviously, if you do learn better from videos, then this will be ideal for you. And these will continue for all trades. Now, I'm not going to do every single break even, because it is the same process over and over. I think what I'm going to do is just stick to the wins and the losses, if that's okay with you guys. Just otherwise, I do take quite a lot of break evens. So there's going to be a lot of the same thing over and over again. Whereas at least with the wins and the losses, you can see the process for the trades that we make money on and then we lose a little bit of money on as well. Perfect. So I think that will do for today. I hope you have a good weekend, as I said at the start, and we'll have a good week again next week.